In the words of one critic on Rotten Tomatoes, the narrative is so curiously lacking in audience appeal that kids may find the prospect of sending Christmas in the workhouse more attractive. This week we watched Christmas Carol, the movie!
From 2001.
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole! I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire! I'm a vampire!
Interesting choice of words.
What is that? What is that? What is it? Oh, no, not the bee! Not the bee! Ah! Oh, my God. I'm a pixie pear! Okay, let's run.
This is the unbearable fate of massive talent. I'm Brittany Green.
And I'm Liz Kurtzman. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
everyone.
Which was not even said in this movie.
If it was, to be fair, if it was said, we had already tuned out at the end.
That's true.
The ending felt very and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
It truly was sort of summed up in a very anticlimactic
wrap
way.
This up. Yeah.
Yeah. What a film. And we debated about whether we should even do this one. How do you feel now that we watched it?
It's still a Christmas Carol, which I think is a good enough Christmas thing that even when it's a bad version of it, I'm still yeah.
Yeah.
It's Christmas Carol.
And to prove your point, the Christmas Carol story is so iconic that by our count, there's been at least 150 film or TV adaptations. And that's just film or TV. That is not theater, radio, comic book, other novellas, books, whatever. So this is a story that endures no matter how bad the adaptation is.
Yeah.
And we did watch this one because our man is in it for a very short amount of time. For
about 3.5 minutes, marking this as so far the least amount of Nicolas Cage that we've had in a thing.
Yeah. And really, we decided to do this one because we were like, Christmas!
Yeah!
And it did look weird from the trailer, and we love weird shit. And
it's kind of weird.
It's so weird. Whether it's fun weird, I don't know.
It's really dreamy at parts, especially for the Ghost of Christmas Present.
Yeah, I liked that sort of weird section. But a lot of it is just it's...
The animation's
rough.
It's barely animated.
It's sort of Uncanny Valley because everyone is so two-dimensional that they're almost one-dimensional is what I said, because there's the only shadows on their faces are the shadows between their eyebrows and their eyes. So they all look like they have Kiss eyeshadow on. And that's the only, I guess there were a couple people, the fat characters they drew with extreme shadows. Too much shadow.
It made them look really creepy.
Yes. Well, because all the fat characters are evil.
Well, no, not Fezziwig.
Oh, Fozziwig.
Little Fozziwig.
His name is Fezziwig.
But,
I don't remember that because...
Portrayed by Fozzie
famously in the best adaptation of A Christmas Carol. What's your favorite adaptation?
The Muppet.
Okay, I mean, that's the right answer, but I had to ask.
Immediately followed by Scrooged with Bill Murray.
Which I do need to rewatch because it's been a real long time since I saw that one.
It's those two are just neck and neck for me.
Yeah. Mostly what I remember about that one is Carol Kane.
That's she's a really big reason why that one's really up there for me.
And it's absolutely, because her part is so good.
It's so funny.
And I do remember that the Ghost of Christmas Future creeped me out when I saw it when I was a kid.
Oh yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, but it's the most fun one.
He's got the TV screens inside of him.
And he's the cabbie driver.
No, the cab driver. Oh, he's
Is that
passed.
the wrong person? Oh.
I thought you were talking about Future.
I am talking about Future. I thought Carol Kane's present.
Carol Kane is present.
And the cabbie driver's past.
Yes.
And the future one is the one with the TVs in it.
Yeah, the TV face, and then he's got he opens up the robe, and then there's the screaming, screechy little demon things, and then Bill Murray says, "Oh, that's really scary. Did our guys do that?" Because he thinks that he's doing the TV production.
Oh man, it's coming back. That would be on TV in the 90s, and I remember seeing that part as a kid and being super freaked out by it. Which, like, I also
It's
remember
scary.
seeing the Patrick Stewart one and being super freaked out by. I was just sort of traumatized by this story over and over again.
It's pretty scary for a Christmas story.
Yeah. But to go into, like, you know, professor mode for a minute.
Please.
I've written a little bit about ghosts and the stage, especially. But one of the really fun things is that ghost stories were traditionally something that you told at Christmas time.
Oh.
And he was following this long line of, especially in England, it's still to this day a tradition of telling ghost stories at Christmas time, and that dates back to when, you know, in the summer, in the autumn, in the spring, you worked outside, and then in the winter, you had these long, long nights where everyone's just sort of inside, sitting around the fire, and that's when people would tell creepy stories, you know, to sort of creep out the kids and you know, warm up a long night. So yeah, we have these, they call them like midwinter ghost stories. And so like when Charles Dickens wrote this, he wasn't just like, a lot of people joke about like ghosts at Christmas time doesn't make any sense, but it actually does make sense if you look at it historically.
That's really fun. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Just a little history for everyone.
History
Just a little history lesson. Yeah, so this is, I mean, we all sort of know this. We all know the story, though, as I discovered.
Yeah, we don't need to go through the story.
No, everyone knows the story. What we want to talk about is the sort of deviations in this adaptation.
Yes.
Because there are some wild ones.
So, here's what I'll say about this Scrooge.
Yeah.
He's a mean guy.
Well, here's the thing.
And he's like he's unbothered.
He is too unbothered by everything that happens. And also, but it's complicated because he's very nice to animals in this adaptation.
He loves mice and hates everything else.
Hates everything that's not a mouse, basically. Which, even saying that out loud, I feel insane to say that out loud.
I will say that shots of cartoon mice occupy probably 35 to 40% of the screen time of this movie.
Yeah. And, like, to be clear, the mice don't speak.
No.
They're just miming and squeaking and
giving emotional support to Scrooge.
And the camera cuts to them, and, like, when there's scenes where they're like, building
wildly and squeaking.
Yeah. There's scenes where they're, like, building emotion or they're building tension, and then completely ruin it by cutting away to the mice doing something.
Well, the mice, I think, are supposed to sort of be having the emotions that they want the audience to have. They're
the sort of Greek chorus.
They are. The mice are the Greek chorus.
This is another, we started off with a quote from Rotten Tomatoes. Here's another one, but this was not from Rotten Tomatoes. I think this is somewhere else. It says, the character animation is dully inexpressive, and two obnoxious mute mice do more scampering and gesticulating than Harpo Marx did in his entire career. A scathing review from Variety when this movie came out. But despite that, in addition to our man Nick Cage, this movie also has Kate Winslet, Rhys Ifans?
Rhys,
you know, he's Welsh.
Yeah.
And Michael Gambon. And then the actor who plays Dickens and then also does the voice of Ebenezer Scrooge is Simon Callow, who is a British actor that I assure you, if you looked him up, you would recognize him because he's been in so much.
And he's also been in, like, at least 3 adaptations of Christmas Carol.
He has played Charles Dickens in 2 different screen adaptations. He's also played the animator John Leach, I think was his name. In The Man Who Invented Christmas, and then he did a one-man show, a stage show, about Dickens. So he's made a career out of being Charles Dickens. I recognized him from Phantom of the Opera. But he's been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
He is, and the other, we haven't even mentioned this. It starts out and it ends live action.
Yes. With, like, Charles Dickens talking to an audience, telling the story in Boston.
Yeah. Which is a thing. He did. Yeah. He did
do a Christmas Carol in Boston, do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Was there 2 mice that he really liked that scared the audience? And he's like, this story also starts out with a mouse.
Yep. No, that's actually recorded in history. Two mice
That was
occupy the stage
in the
with Mr.
newspaper.
Dickens. Yeah, my dude Charlie D loved to do a stage reading of his shows, and he traveled around the U.S. People in America loved him, and so he did do shows in America.
Isn't he the one that has there's a really funny quote about Pittsburgh
Oh, really?
that it's he hated it.
Oh, yeah.
But
well, he
largely
hated a lot
the
of
United
America.
States,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was going to say, America loved him. He did not love America.
No.
Famously disparaged our prison systems, which, like, why wouldn't you? I think he specifically visited East Penn and was like, this is a nightmare place. Let's see if we can...
Let's see if I can find that Pittsburgh thing.
Charles Dickens, Pittsburgh?
It's a
Sorry.
Did you find it?
I don't know if I found it, but the headline that came up was, what the Dickens?
That's pretty good.
From a Pittsburgh paper. He came to Pittsburgh 107, well, more than that now, 180 years ago. And at that time, Pittsburgh was only 30 years old. And he, his wife, Kate, came, and they were traveling through America on a 5-month visit. And I guess they hung out here for a little. This was when we didn't have an H.
Mm. You know, it started with an H, and then they took the H away.
Took the H away, and then they said, we want that H back, please.
I found a different article that the headline is, Eyewitness 1842, Dickens finds Pittsburgh full of smoke and fires.
Yeah. Yep. That sounds right. I mean, honestly,
it's still full of smoke and fires.
Oh, he did. This is fun. He
had a quote.
Visited with Stephen Foster, who is from very famous musician who the Pitt Theater is named after.
Yeah,
the Stephen
and
Foster
they took down
Memorial.
the very racist statue of him that was in front of there.
Yeah,
kind of more in front of the museum, I guess. But
yeah.
Do you remember it? Was that before your time?
That was before I lived here, so I never saw it.
So it was a statue of Stephen Foster. And it had like a depiction of a black gentleman like at his feet and like barefoot with like a banjo.
Oh,
it was not great.
No. I mean, Stephen Foster was racist. He wrote some racist songs,
and all of the songs were stolen, basically.
Yeah.
So
he imitated the style of black musicians. Yeah, and
I think that was what the statue was supposed to be sort of about. But it was a bad look to have him sort of like at his feet.
Absolutely. Oh, okay.
Anyways,
that's all.
So the
brands.
quote that I'm like can't remember was something along the lines of like, just how much Pittsburgh sucks.
Yeah, and you know what? That makes sense.
It was much. Somebody else will have to do the research because I can't think of it. But it was something that was like sort of clever that people still repeat to this day because people have told me.
Of course,
the thing. I just can't remember it right now.
Yeah, and that makes sense because, like, as we all know, he was very critical of the way that the poor were treated, the way the debtors were treated, because his family. Because of his father's debts, he grew up in some ways in and out of debtor's prison, and had to work in a bootblack factory as a 12-year-old. So that's why he always wrote about like the rich suck. It's also why he was obsessed with making money, which he was. And that's part of the reason Christmas Carol got written, because he needed money, and he was running out, and so he wrote it in like 6 weeks because he needed to turn it in and get that money.
And we still love it.
And we still love it to this day.
Years later.
Yeah. But maybe not this adaptation. So some thoughts that I'll just randomly sort of get into. Was he in love with Marley?
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah.
The funny thing about this adaptation is, besides the fact that it has a sort of some homoerotic tones, is that they looked like identical.
They looked really similar.
Not when Marley's a ghost, but in pictures where he would like look longingly at the picture of Marley that he is hanging up. I was like, is that him? Is he looking at a picture of himself?
Pictures of his younger self.
Yeah, and I wasn't clear on whether the big picture he had in his house was Marley or him. when he was younger.
I think it was him, but it could have been Marley.
Could have been Marley. I don't know. There was definitely some vibes. Definitely some vibes there.
How did you feel about this version of Marley?
I think...
Being that it was Nicolas Cage, the subject of our podcast.
Absolutely. We can't put that off talking about. Honestly, really creepy.
He's creepy.
It was a very creepy ghost. I liked that.
And the voice wasn't distracting.
No, though my question about it is, why is he American?
I think he kind of tried to do a British accent.
Did he?
I think he did.
I didn't think he was even trying. I thought he was just trying to do a like ghost voice.
Well, he was definitely doing a ghost voice.
I think he was just trying to do a sort of like impressive sort of, not sophisticated, but like...
There was just the hint of that
class.
sort of Nicolas Cage, I'm a fancy man voice.
Yes, that's the I'm a fancy man voice. I don't think he was doing a British voice.
Yeah. But it was, like, because it was kind of subtle, it wasn't like, this is a bad accent. It was like, this is like...
But he wasn't even, like,
person.
there wasn't any point where it sounded like he was trying to, like, even do any of the things that people do when they do a bad British accent.
Well, he wasn't Dick Van Dyking it.
He wasn't doing that. Usually it's the, like, dropping the R's.
See, that's the thing. I think he did drop some R's.
Okay. I missed that. What I do have written down, this is a quote I have written down. It's, no! Which was my favorite line, was the way he said, no, I need you to put the sound clip in of him going, no! Because it sounded like someone trying to do a spooky ghost sound. Like, if you have, like, a little plush ghost and you squeeze it, it would make that noise.
There's lots of ghosty, drawn out, just... If you ever wanted to listen to Nicolas Cage just groan out every single line... I
also wrote down, I am doomed. Because I remember that's the one where he, like, throws himself backwards at the same time.
Right,
and that was the most dramatic thing I'd ever seen. It was like watching a teenage girl flop down on her bed.
Here's my thing. I think he was kind of doing a British accent, but because every word was stretched out, it's kind of like that effect where, like, people who are British when they're singing don't sound British because all of everything is stretched out.
Interesting.
Because he was really, it's kind of like singing if you're doing only a ghost voice.
I'll hear you out. I still don't believe it, but I'll hear you out. I also... this is the very funny thing about this... Another funny thing about this adaptation is that almost every adaptation I've seen, maybe every adaptation I've seen, the way that Marley appears, or when he appears, is Scrooge goes home, the door knocker turns into his face, and he goes, well, that was weird. What was that about? And then he goes in, he, like, puts his little, his nightgown on and his little tassel hat.
With a little bonbon on the end.
And he gets his little candle on the brass thing. And then he, like, sits down and has, some dinner. And that's when he sees Marley.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes... And then there's the moment after it where he's freaked out, but he pretends like, I must have been a crazy dream. I must have eaten something weird. And, like, he doesn't quite believe it, but he has to tell himself that, right? But it's believable because it's at night. He's home alone. This Marley appears in his office at, like, 6 p.m.
Yep.
Like, Bob Cratchit walks out the door.
And then still shows up on the door knocker, but he...
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's afterwards. So he, like, swoops in the window at 6 p.m. People are still out on the streets.
I think Bob Cratchit has left.
Yeah, no, Bob Cratchit walks out the door.
Yeah.
And then Marley comes in the window.
Yeah.
And so this whole thing happens. Marley is very creepy. I loved it. I loved all that. And then he leaves, and Scrooge is like, well, I'm gonna go home. And he acts like totally
Nothing
unbothered.
happened. Yeah.
He's just like, I don't have time for ghosts.
I am very busy.
I'm so busy.
I am so busy.
And then he, like, walks home.
I don't have time for 3 ghosts. I have things to do.
He, like, stomps home like, this is bullshit. I can't believe I didn't schedule ghosts into my time today. I don't have time for this. And it's such a funny reaction to it.
He's, like, just immediately back to being curmudgeonly.
Yeah, he's not scared at all by this. And this is kind of happens throughout. Like, every ghost that appears... He is sort of, after they leave, he goes, God damn it, Another ghost.
Well, when the first ghost, the ghost of Christmas Past shows up, his initial reaction is, okay, so she's like a candle in this one,
yes,
basically. Like her hair is fire and she's very bright.
It's kind of fun. I like that she
neat.
goes back and forth from looking very young to being old.
Yeah.
And I like the flickering hair candle.
Yeah. So his reaction is, it's very bright. Can't you turn off the lights? And then, yeah, I see you're a ghost, but I would much rather go to sleep than pal around with you, so would you please turn the lights off when you leave?
Yes, it reminded me, so another TV adaptation, Catherine Tate, the comedian, she was also one of the companions on Doctor Who, Donna, and she had a comedy variety show, and she played this character, Nan, who's this, like, old, crotchety lady. And they did a Christmas special with Nan where the three ghosts visit her. And, like, the ghost of Christmas Present is David Tennant. And it's very funny. But this is how she reacts. It's just like, and it's comedy, so it's, like, funny that she's just like, get out of my house. I'm trying to have a nice night. And you guys keep, fucking everything up. And that's funny because it's a comedy. But in this one, it was just, like, such a weird reaction is that every time one of these, like, weird ghost shows up and does something that is impossible, he's just like, ah, dang it. Get out of here. And I'm like, what is this?
Very weird.
It's just so strange. There's also, Scrooge is like 40 in this one.
He's younger.
He's middle-aged instead of being old. Mm-hmm. And, oh yeah, we mentioned the mice, but like, guys, I don't know how to explain this to you, how much the mice are in this. There's like, the animated mice are in the live-action part. And then they, like, ride around in his pocket, and he seems to understand them, even though we don't hear them speak.
Oh, yeah, he talks to them. He gives them little treats and snacks.
He finds them at his home, and he's like, how did you get here? 1, recognizes it's the same mouse from his office. And 2, goes, in my pocket? Oh, here's some cheese. And I said, what?
He loves them. He feeds them throughout the movie and
lets them sleep in his bed.
They care for him. He lets them sleep in his bed. They ride around in his pocket.
It's so weird because in the same like scenes, he's like so mean to the people.
Hates people. Loves these mice. We were joking because at the end when he's supposed to have been redeemed and everything, he brings them like a whole block of cheese and a whole cake. And we were like, he was going to give those to them anyways.
That was
always part of the plan.
Yeah, that's not new. That was just him being like, well, I'll give you your treats a little early.
I'm feeling good today.
Yeah, they were all over this movie. Another thing that they changed is that Belle, his lost love, is fully in this movie. And they end up together, sort of, I guess. At the end.
Seemingly, yeah, maybe.
She's like a nurse at a hospital, and there's this whole subplot about how, like, the doctor it's like a hospital for the poor, and they're in debt, and then Scrooge gets the debt, buys the debt from somewhere else, and so then the doctor gets thrown in debtor's prison, and then, like, Belle writes a letter to Scrooge, and then, like, tries to give it to him, but it, like, just hangs out the whole time.
Yeah, so we need to talk about the letter a little bit because it's so funny.
Because the mice.
So she ends up giving the letter to Bob Cratchit. Bob Cratchit puts it on Scrooge's desk.
Who's kind of rude in this one.
Bob Cratchit? Yeah, when he's at work, he definitely takes on a Scrooge, like, when he's with his family,
he's normal, but, like, at the office, when she shows up, he was pretty rude to her.
Just, like, letting her know. It's clearly outlined in the contract. Well, the consequences. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, like Mr. Scrooge won't see anyone.
Yeah, so he puts it on Scrooge's desk, and the mice make sure that it gets home with him.
Yes, the mice are trying to hook him up with Belle.
Yeah. And he is in bed with the letter. He's in bed with the letter. He's like, I guess I'll read this now. Like, immediately falls asleep, so he can't read the letter. Pause. I guess I'll read this letter. And then he, like, throws it and falls asleep immediately.
He's sitting in bed, like, upright, and he goes, oh, a letter, I guess I'll read it. And then he drops it. It's like he got shot with a dart, and then he fell asleep. That made me laugh.
I wish I could fall asleep like that.
We were like, that's the goal. If I could just lay in bed and go, all right, and then sleep. then these mice, now the letter is sitting on the bed, so the mice
one of the mice reads it, and the other one scolds the other.
The other one's like, that's private, you can't read that. And I said, what are the mice doing? How can they read?
It's also established in this that not every person in this world can read, and to have the mice be able to read this letter and the people not be able to read things...
I assume Scrooge taught them.
Scrooge did.
Scrooge sits at night with the mice, and he was like, A is for apple.
Yeah, because they, like, have that scene, or before the mice reading, they have that scene where, like, the guy who's, like, his, henchman? Like, I can't read this, but I know someone who can.
Yes. Yeah, he has a henchman, Old Joe, who is, like, a super minor character in the story, originally, has, like, a part as Scrooge's, like, henchman who goes and bullies people out of their homes. It's odd. He, like, meets with him in back alleys and stuff, and I'm like, what? Okay. So that's in here. The mice are jacked. There's, like, the one mouse is super muscular in some scenes, and I think it's very funny. It made me laugh a lot. Another addition is before he goes to bed, before he tries to read a letter and falls asleep, I should say, there are carolers outside. And and we had just seen Tiny Tim and his mom at the hospital.
Yes.
And, like, prognosis not great. She pays the doctor seemingly with a button, and that's when we see the doctor taken away to the debtor's prison. But then we have these carolers singing, and Peter and Tiny Tim are in the group of carolers. And we said, that boy has tuberculosis. He shouldn't be out there in his shorts singing. And
then... he
had
pneumonia, right, in this one?
I guess, well, no, he was sick already.
His pneumonia got worse.
His pneumonia, okay. Maybe in this one he has pneumonia. But Scrooge throws a bucket of water out the window on the carolers, and it lands directly on Tiny Tim. No one else.
Soaking wet in the winter.
So this little sick child is now, like, gets pneumonia, and seemingly that is what is going to kill him.
Yeah, so Scrooge directly murders Tiny Tim in this one.
And it's before he gets reformed, so presumably he still will die.
Maybe.
You know, like, that already happened.
I mean,
I guess
isn't part of it, like, he can pay for medicine?
He can pay for the doctor now. Yeah, so I guess that'll help. But it's still, like, 1843.
Yeah, it's still a crapshoot.
Maybe he could just buy him a sweater. That's kind of what medical, care looked like back then, is you should wear a sweater. Yeah, so there, I don't know. Then we've got, we talked about the ghost of past. Mm-hmm. The candle. Oh, we didn't talk about a megaphone, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, so I think you're right about what it was.
I was right, but we didn't. But we figured it out at the end, and
she carries around this cone.
Yeah,
and we couldn't figure out what the cone was for a long time.
Sometimes light shines out of the cone.
Yep.
And sometimes the cone seemingly transports them through time. And we said, "What is the cone?" And then I realized that because she's a candle, it's the thing you put over the flame, and it like,
burns out the candle.
Yeah, snuffs the candle. And we do see her get snuffed at the end, but it didn't make any. It was just so weird. Yeah. And then the Ghost of Christmas Present has a cornucopia that he kind of uses in the same way that she used her megaphone snuff.
Did you say that you figured out that was something that was the cornucopia a real prop in the thing, or was it just that they sprinkled magic on people?
Oh, they were just sprinkling magic on people with that. I mean,
in the real story.
Well, I don't know if it was actually included, but I will say I think it was, because it's in a lot of adaptations. There's like a cornucopia with the, like, food and stuff. But I've never seen him carry it around like that. What I did figure out is that the two creepy kids are from the original story.
Yeah, but you said, like, the part with the fishermen and stuff.
They see
people.
They do, like, fly over and see, like, the fishermen. And this part's really kind of interesting because, one, who does the voice of
Michael Gambon?
Michael Gambon. Dumbledore is the voice of Christmas Present in his most subdued performance I think I've ever seen, which is wild because the Ghost of Christmas Present is usually, like, jolly and loud, and instead he was like, "No, well, that's Cratchit, and the little boy's gonna die." That's like the volume he's at the whole movie. And I was like, what is this directing? But this section was very trippy.
It was fun. I liked it a lot. So I was reading about the director of this, and he directed he's mostly an animator. And I'll pull it up. But he directed a music video for Kate Bush, and I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah, this whole section was done in, like, the two of them are still animated in the sort of, like, hand-drawn style we've seen the whole time. But all the backgrounds and other characters are in these, like, oil pastels. And they're sort of, like, dreamy and trippy and weird. So, you know, if you want to, like, do an edible and watch this section, that might be fun.
Yeah. No, it was really trippy. It was
yes.
fun. The music had a lot of jazz.
Jazz! Yeah, that was right. It was all the cha, choo, weird chantings and singings. And there, I guess in the original novella, there is, like, he is flying, like, through, I don't know if it's just England or the world, and, like, over, like, a lighthouse and, like, a boat and all this other stuff. And usually that's not included in adaptations. In this one, he is using the cornucopia to, like, sprinkle what seems to be LSD all over everyone and make them happy. Which, you know, good for them. Yeah, so this part's, I don't know. This part was fun until he brought in his two creepy little children's, which were Ignorance and Want.
Yeah, that was really creepy.
That was nightmare fuel.
Yeah, they were talking about, so, what is it? Ignorance is, like, the little demon child.
Mm-hmm.
And he, like, turns into a skeleton and crumbles into dust.
It's very, really like, He Chose Poorly from, like, The Last Crusade, where he, like, sort of gets all sunken in, like the Crypt Keeper, and then crumbles into, like, a skeleton.
Yeah, it's very creepy.
It's so weird. They are so creepy. And I thought, I'd never seen this before in any adaptation. And then I looked it up, and this is from the original story. I think most people leave it out because it is so strange. And I kind of wish we had them more because, you know me, I like creepy stuff. I was all for it. But yeah, that's something they added back in for this wonderful adaptation. And then we go to the Cratchits and to their dinner, which, you know, we've seen before. This time Tiny Tim is dying of pneumonia at the table. Peter just got a job at a weaving factory. Good for him. There's two zombie-looking girls sitting there.
They're so gray.
The one girl is straight up gray.
Gray.
The other one is just pale. One of them looks like she died and came back to life. And this, instead, the transitions between ghosts happen so quickly that I missed
between
some
present
of them.
and future, yeah.
Yeah. Because he's like, what's going to happen?
He's like, I can't tell you that. Mm-hmm. Somebody else will have to, and then just instantly it's Christmas future.
Christmas future, who's a watercolor of the Grim Reaper.
It's always a Grim Reaper, though.
It's always a Grim Reaper. The way they animated that scene was so weird.
It was really weird.
It was so, like, weird art film to me. In that moment.
They're like, so you have, like, the left side of the screen, you have Scrooge looking on, and then the bottom right corner is the table, and then above the table you just get, like, these, like, faces appearing above, saying their lines, basically, while the family is, like, crying underneath. It's so weird. It is very artsy.
Oh, that made me laugh. They did bring up that Scrooge threw the water on Tim, which I thought was funny.
And that was in present.
Yeah, in the present, they were like, because he says this is to Scrooge, the founder of the feast, and, you know, Mrs. Cratchit is like, no,
I will not. He dumped water on Tiny Tim.
He killed our kid. Look at him coughing over there. Yeah, and then this is sort of standard, except that, like, the only thing that was changed, I think, in this part was that the people rejoicing, the tenants we see rejoicing because Ebenezer Scrooge died, in the flash forward are Belle and the doctor. And, well, Belle's not rejoicing. She's obviously torn, but the doctor's like, oh my god, whoever we get next will probably be better than Scrooge, you know? And then it's present day. And how does that go, Brittany?
He wakes up and yells at a child.
He springs out of bed, opens a window, little boy's making a snowman.
Just,
and he
"Hi,
says,
you!
what day is it? And the kid's
Are you
like,
listening? I am deaf."
the kid's like, what? And he's like, I said, what day is it, you idiot? And we're like, whoa. He did not learn anything. He's so mean to this kid. And then the kid's
he
like...
finds out it's Christmas, and he's like, oh, it's the same day. It was just a dream. And then he's like, oh, and I just get to go back and live my life like normal
he's
again,
like,
I
everything's
guess.
fine.
And then he sees in the mirror he's got chains like Marley did in the beginning. He's like, oh crap. Oh, like, gotta get my act together.
And then he goes,
he's like, I'm so sorry about before. I'm like, are you?
Just kidding.
Just kidding. I'm nice now.
And then, like, we see that keep happening, where he is, like, going about the day, and he'll have a flashback to something awful he saw, or see himself with chains on, and, like, it
he's
feels...
not better.
He's not
like,
better.
Has PTSD from these nightmares.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what is really interesting to me about this choice, is that, like, you know...
He still loves those mice, though.
And, like, all adaptations have that sort of, like, you need the threat of something bad happening to you to reform. But it also feels like he learns to change because he wants to, like, have friends and a family and be loved and not be, like, this perceived as a horrible person. And so he does, and, like, as things go along, he likes the Ghost of Christmas Present and has fun with him. In this adaptation, he was not having any of the ghosts. He did not enjoy a moment of it. And at the end, we're left with this,
I think he did enjoy the cornucopia for a second.
Oh, that's because that was drugs.
It was drugs.
He was high as fuck in that scene. That's why. But yeah, in this one, it seems to be purely the, like, threat of
No, it's
hell.
more stick than carrot, I think.
Yeah, exactly. More stick than carrot. So that's sort of, like, a weird thing that they did in this one.
I do not believe that he... And then they have, like, the voiceover saying, and he got even better than he said he would. And I'm like, I don't think so. I doubt it.
The end, they're just sort of like, everything was fine. And you go,
Was it?
I don't know.
I don't buy it.
The other strange thing is that, like, he finally reads Belle's letter at the end.
Oh, yeah,
at the
like...
end of the film. And he
after
just goes,
he's seen
oh,
the
wow,
ghost.
she needs me. And I'm like...
Well, I think he tries to stop it, but it's too late.
It's too late.
Yeah, because the hospital has been emptied out.
Yeah.
And
It's
I don't know
over
what
on
happened.
Christmas.
There had been, like, 20 kids in there.
Also, it was like, I don't know what they did with those kids.
They
Those
were in
kids
the bag.
Dead. They're the bags.
He gives us orange. There's kids in a bag at the end, and he gives them oranges.
Describing this film is like trying to describe a dream
That's
that you
just
had when you had a fever and you're trying to tell someone, like, what happened, and they're like,
the kids in the bag.
there's kids.
At the end.
He gave the kids in the bag oranges. And you go, what? Okay. But yeah, when she walks through the hospital, there's, like, cobwebs and stuff. I was like, wait, what building is this?
It's been a couple hours.
Yeah. And then when he gets there in time to see Belle, who they haven't seen each other in 20 years, I think.
No, because she didn't see it when she was bringing the letter.
No, and she was like, you didn't hear my cries for help? And I said, okay, well, that's exaggeration.
You sent a letter that you didn't even give to him.
Yeah, you didn't even hand that letter to him, and you gave one letter a couple hours before you're going to be evicted. Like, what? I don't know. Did anything happen? Did he, like, reestablish the hospital?
Maybe.
I
we know that the doctor got out of the hospital, or out of the jail.
Yeah.
Out of
So
the
he did
debtor's
that.
prison.
And he gave Bob Cratchit a raise the next day.
Quadrupled his salary.
Quadrupled the salary. It was sort of like, it was just so anticlimactic at the end. Because it was just sort of like, yep, and then everything was fine, the end. And we went, oh, okay. Like, he didn't even meet Tiny Tim in this one.
No, because they didn't even have the God bless us everyone.
No. He anonymously sent the turkey, hopefully, to the Cratchits. We don't
Yeah, he
know.
just gave that kid money and then is like, give it to the Cratchits.
And that kid said, sure, and ran off with it. I'm in.
After this guy had yelled at him in the street.
Yeah. Yep.
So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. We did get one more glimpse at Nick Cage at the end.
Yeah, that's right.
There was a fun bit, and, fun for me, which is dark, but, like, when he sees his grave, and he's a scourge, and then there's, like, a procession of, like, ghosts being punished, and they're all in chains, and Marley is with them. And what was, like, the line he said to him at the end? I don't know. He said something just, like, change your ways or something.
Yeah.
As he went by, and we were like, oh! And that was it. You can literally, there is a YouTube video called All Nick Cage's Scenes.
And it's about 3.5 minutes.
Yeah. So go look that up. It's fun. I don't know. The only way to watch this film, I think, is if you did get, like, high.
It's not long.
It's not very long.
It's an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
But
it is weird.
Yeah.
And it ends with the live action again, but the animated mice are there.
So, the director of this film was Jimmy Murakami. And he also did The Snowman. Did you see The Snowman?
That's so weird because when I saw The Snowman that the kid was making, I thought, that looks like the snowman from A Snowman.
Yeah, I've seen The Snowman once and I can never see it again because it devastated me. And
so sad.
I think I cried for an hour after it was done.
Did you have the book?
No.
Okay, I was very familiar with the book as a kid.
No, I didn't have the book.
And then I saw the movie, which is beautiful.
It's beautiful.
So sad.
It's very pretty.
It's very rough.
It broke me.
Have you seen its other adaptation, which is Jack Frost, featuring Michael Keaton?
I also cried for an hour after that one. No, I haven't seen.
That's one that when I was a kid made sense, and now I'm like, what was that film? Especially because there is another Jack Frost movie that came out around the same time that is a horror film that has almost the same plot. But it's a serial killer that gets in the body of a snowman.
Weird.
Yeah. It's not very good. Anyway. Okay. The Snowman.
Yeah.
He directed that.
He wasn't the big director.
Yeah.
He was the supervising director.
So from watching the Ghosts of Christmas Present section, could see it. Any other part of the film, no.
Yeah.
But that part's kind of... It feels like he was good at doing, like, music videos.
Mm-hmm.
And
like pretty
the snowman
films.
has no
dialogue.
speaking.
Yeah.
There's no dialogue. And it's just sort of these, like, impressionistic, like, beautiful animated sequences. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Watch that instead.
Yeah.
Watch that instead, and then watch the Nicolas Cage scenes from this film. That's it.
Or watch the Nicolas Cage scenes and then just watch them up at Christmas Carol and remember how good that one is.
Yeah. Yeah. I gotta do my yearly watch.
Yeah. Ooh. We're not sponsored by them or anything, but if you're a Pittsburgher, I just saw that the Row House is doing a cereal night with Muppet Christmas Carol where they're going to have a cereal bar.
Oh my God.
And so you can have a bowl of cereal and watch Muppet Christmas Carol. It sounds really cute.
Oh my God. I have to go.
Yeah.
Even though I've seen that. I own that movie on DVD.
Yeah, but haven't you ever seen that movie before while eating cereal with a bunch of strangers?
Not with strangers. With my family? Yes.
In public.
I want to call and say, is this the version that has the Love Is Gone in it? And if not, I shan't be there.
Oh, see, I don't love that song.
I love that song. And it doesn't make sense if you cut it out. Because they reprise it at the end.
Yeah.
And it also just, like, the scene with Belle literally is like, hello, goodbye. Because they cut out the whole song.
Yeah. They should have made Belle a Muppet. I think that would have improved it.
It would have made it a lot less sad. If Michael Caine was, like, crying because a Muppet was singing The Love Is Gone to him.
Which Muppet? Maybe Janice.
Oh, no, not Janice. Oh, I haven't watched it yet, but Brett Goldstein who plays Roy Kent on Ted Lasso, who is like my dream man.
Yeah.
The writer / actor, not Roy Kent, but he famously loves the Muppets. There was a video going around of him from karaoke years before, like singing like the Muppet Christmas Carol, and he got to interview the Muppets this year for like the 30th anniversary or whatever of the movie. And I saw a clip of it that's very cute, but you should find it and watch it.
I will. I also love Brett Goldstein.
So good. And he's the writer, not really an actor. And when they were looking to cast that part, he was like, I think I could be Roy.
Yeah. Everyone was like, I don't see it. And then he auditioned and they were like, yes.
Yeah, you're Roy. It is perfect. Anyway, so these are all the things you could watch instead of this film, in other words.
You could watch Brett Goldstein interview the Muppets. You could watch Ted Lasso. You could watch The Snowman. You could watch Muppet Christmas Carol. Mm-hmm. You could watch Scrooged.
Yeah.
Throwing that one in there.
Absolutely. One. That's a good one. You could watch Catherine Tate's Christmas Carol parody that she did, which we also mentioned. You know, these are all ideas that would save you from
you could watch
this.
So we're going to save them for future Christmases. You could watch one of the other two Nicolas Cage Christmas movies that I can't guarantee are better than this one, but they probably are.
They have to be. They might not be good, but surely they're better than this.
Speaking of which, the Rotten Tomatoes score on this for critics, 13%.
Yeah.
For audiences, 48%.
There were a lot of good reviews on Amazon for it.
Still rotten, but like I said, it's a Christmas Carol. So, you know, it's not possible, I think, for a Christmas Carol to be that bad.
Like, the story at the heart is still good.
Yeah.
And even though they changed it, like, people are it's gonna be colored by nostalgia. It's gonna be colored by, like, already knowing the story. So, and especially, I think, when it came out, people were probably like, this is fine. Now we're like, this is not fine.
Yeah. I mean, there were already, in 2001, so many good adaptations.
So many good adaptations that it feels very unnecessary.
Yeah. But, yeah, people are gonna keep making film adaptations of various types of this. So
I think that the mouse lobbyists made this film.
Yeah.
To try and make mice look better.
Well, I told you that the owner of the owner of the company in Scrooged is the reason that the mice are in this movie.
Yeah.
Because he was like,
if Scrooge came after
I read the numbers and dogs and cats are starting to watch TV, and do you know how many dogs and cats there are in America? You gotta put a dormouse. Wasn't there a dormouse in A Christmas Carol? He's like, no, I don't think so, but we can put them in there.
If this movie came out before Scrooged, I would assume that's why that was in Scrooged. But, like...
This came out after Scrooged, so that's why there was the dormice in this.
Yeah, somebody saw that and was like, that makes perfect sense.
We gotta add mice.
He's right. He's honest.
He's correct.
Yeah. People love mice. Cats love mice. Dogs love mice. Elephants hate mice.
Is that a thing?
In cartoons.
It is in cartoons.
Famously, elephants are afraid of mice. This is a fever dream I'm still waking up from. So, yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone. And a happy don't watch this movie.
You know what time it is?
What time is it?
Inside the cage, 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 inside the cage,
inside the cage, inside the cage, inside the cage, inside the cage, inside the cage. That's the best one yet. Also, Brittany just sprung that on me. I wasn't ready for that. That took me out. Okay, so what we're going to do for Inside the Cage is nothing to do with Nicolas Cage.
Not really.
And that's just the theme of this episode, is this just a departure from our normal, I guess.
So, this one's a little bit more current events focused. And there is a link to Nicolas Cage. So, There was just the prisoner release, the prisoner exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Brittany Griner for, what's that guy's name? I pulled it up.
Very Russian.
He's
Nick.
Yeah, hang on. I have to actually pull up an article.
Yes, good news this week that Brittany Griner was brought home at last, and we're all relieved about that. The current joke on the internet is that our other boy, Vin Diesel, is the reason that she's home, because Vin Diesel posted this, like, very strange Instagram post that was just, like...
Okay, I haven't actually heard about this.
Oh, you haven't heard about this part? Okay, so a couple weeks ago, Vin Diesel posted on Instagram, there's, like, a picture of him at a basketball game, and a professional basketball game. And the caption he put on it was, I need Brittany Griner home before Christmas. And, like, the picture is just him giving a thumbs up at a basketball game, at a Lakers game.
Is that Charlie Sheen in the front row?
No.
It just kind of...
It is a bizarro Charlie Sheen in the front row. And so, everyone... And then when she's coming home before Christmas, everyone was like, the Fast and Furious team did it. They did it. They got her home.
Vin Diesel really looks like Pitbull in that picture.
He looks so much like Pitbull in this picture. It's mostly the jacket and the glasses.
Yeah.
But it's just like, obviously this is a Lakers game. Have you ever seen
Vin Diesel and Pitbull in the same room together?
I haven't.
Are they the same person?
They might be the same person. I believe it. Yeah, so now she's home and everyone said Vin Diesel made it happen.
Thank you, Vin Diesel.
Thank you, Vin Diesel.
And the Nicolas Cage link, I think... The guy that they traded Brittany Griner for was Victor Bout, also known as the Merchant of Death.
There it is.
And he was the inspiration for Lord of War, the Nicolas Cage movie where Nicolas Cage plays a Ukrainian arms dealer.
Yeah.
Inspired by Victor Bout.
I haven't watched that film.
We haven't, it's obviously on the list.
Yeah.
But...
Is he have a Ukrainian accent?
I don't know. I don't think so. I've heard people say that this movie is good.
I remember that it got a lot of, like, accolades.
And I think he might be maybe, like, an American-born person.
Yeah. Have we seen him do any accents other than Southern accents?
Well, he does a British ghost accent.
To be debated. As we know, I'm not convinced he's ever done a British accent. I feel like there's another movie we saw. Well, he does a couple, like, nonsense accents that aren't, like... They're just, like, over the top. And then he did, like, his fancy man accent when he did Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a British accent. Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen him...
really do an accent.
Do an accent. That's not just, like, American-based.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Yeah, we've got various kind of vaguely Southern things.
Yeah, Southern things. New York, kind of, in Moonstruck. He does a little bit of a, like...
There's enough accents in America. If you can do all the accents in America, that's a lot of accents.
That's a lot of accents. But, yeah, other than that, we haven't really seen him do anything else. And then, yeah, like, Arizona... all these sort of forms of Southern accents.
I hate to ask this.
Uh-oh.
Does he do an accent in Death Proof, like the trailer, where he's playing... Ooh. He's doing some, like, yellow face?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen that movie in so long that I can't remember.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he might. Unfortunately. He might do that. So maybe that's the reason why he doesn't do that. Yeah, so welcome back, Brittany, and thank you to Vin Diesel for doing the work.
Dominic Toretto on the job.
Family.
Alright, well, that's all for this week. We'll see you with our next episode. I will post about what it is on the Instagram. Please go and follow our Instagram or our Facebook. And rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends, all of that good stuff. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. God bless us, everyone.
And stay cagey.
Bye. Bye.
And still this question keeps on spinning in